All right, and with that, let me welcome you to our World Affairs Fridays event. Welcome to 2021. Not off to the most auspicious start, but let's hope that we've turned a corner and things are going to be different as we move forward in the coming weeks. Today, I am so excited to introduce our speaker today. He is a young fellow who, for those of us old crusty people, his name is Eli Coenen. He is from central Wisconsin, so he's not traveled too far afield to come to work here, but graduated from the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh with a degree in anthropology in 2016. He spent a year serving for AmeriCorps in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and learned about teaching abroad through that program. He spent 11 months in Thailand from May 2019 to April 2020. I'm betting that you got called back a little early.
I did.
Yeah, today in Peoria, he is the assistant director for the Boys and Girls Clubs at the East Bluff Community Center. So welcome, Eli. Take us away.
Okay. So hello, you guys. And the first pictures here, I have this somewhat in chronological order, and I'll try to keep it that way. But so this is the Grand Palace in Bangkok, and this was part of the organization that I went with was CIEE, which is the Council for International Education Exchange. And they put you on like a 5-day crash course in like Thai culture, like how to learn the language, basically like what food is what, kind of different phrases, what are like the do's and do nots. And then at the end, they take you to the Grand Palace, which is in Bangkok. And that was like a full day affair. It was like the #1 touristy trap. You get to kind of try out your new learned Thai words that you have. And it's just kind of like an outing that you really get to like experience the culture. And it was like it wasn't the king, it was like the king's son had like a house that was there, and it was just like super ornate. Like everything was completely done. And these photos were taken by my friend because he went kind of in the morning still. It opened at like 9, and it would be like not so packed, but me and my buddy got stuck up at the police station doing like immigration stuff. And so we didn't get there to the afternoon, and it was just like wall to wall. You couldn't get it, like move around. There was like one of the temples you had to take your shoes off to get in, and there's just like thousands of people with their shoes off in this temple on a hot day. It's just, the smell was not pleasant, but the sights are is honestly super cool. Like the golden bell here, if you look close, you can see like they're like 1 inch by 1 inch like golden squares, and like the whole thing is like completely like decorated and encased in golden like little inch squares. So it's just super ornate. And this was like the first real kind of like exposure to Thai culture that we had, where like they kind of just brought us into the Grand Palace, gave us like a tour guide, and just said like, come back at 4. So we kind of got to have our own freedom after being stuck in a hotel for 4 days. But this was all before I even like got placed in my school. This was within like my first week of being in Thailand. So I really had no idea what was going on at this point still, but this was one of like the coolest temples that I got to see. And then, so this is actually one of my good friends. He's from central Wisconsin too. He went and he served in Tulsa with me, and we actually went abroad together. But this was after we got picked up in Bangkok. All of like the teachers come to Bangkok, pick up the teachers that they have like at their school, and then they will take you to where you're going to stay. And so on our way back, I lived in Phnom Sarakam, it's called, and that's in Chachoengsao province. This is Chachoengsao, the city, like the capital of the province, and this is like the top, like the biggest temple that they had there. So we stopped here on our way to our town, but Chachoengsao was like a cool smaller city. They had like some nice like bus stops. So like if you wanted to get anywhere in Thailand, really, it's by bus, and so you have to get like a ride to like take a bus from our town to like Chachoengsao, from Chachoengsao somewhere else, or to Bangkok. But it was like a hub. And then, so the picture on the left, were, this is at my school, and the Thai woman second from the left, her name was Teacher Patra, or PPAT as we called her, and she was the English director for foreign teachers the first semester, and she was like my Thai mom. Honestly, loved her. She would bring in fruits and like vegetables, and wouldn't let you say no. Like even if you were full and you didn't want to eat it, you had to take a bite for her. Otherwise, she'd hound you. And then the other two. So we had, the school I was at was like 3,000 kids, and so we had multiple foreign exchange teachers. And the first semester, Johnny and Angela were from the UK, and they had been there for a semester. And that was nice to have like two other like fluent English speakers like in the school, because a lot of the Thai people want, like, super friendly, want to speak English, but a lot of them it's very broken, and it's not as easy as it is, when you have two people from the UK to talk to, and share experiences with. And we ended up traveling with them a lot. They showed us the ropes, like how to get around, like where, like the restaurants in the area, like people to hang out with. I guess that was huge. And then the guy in the blue polo next to me was Teacher Ake, and he is a riot. He was a very, very fabulous guy, and like always dressed very nice. We're in an orchard, and he's got a collared shirt on, and he's holding his blazer, but we'd go out on trips and he'd always be dressed up. Very, very like fashionable guy. But he was Teacher Pat's like right-hand man. So if we needed anything, it was always like Teacher Ake would drive us 2 hours to Cha Chuang Sao, to immigration. He would take us to eat all the time. If we had to go to the grocery store before we figured out a way to get there, he would take us. Like he did anything that we needed. And it was like those two were super like influential in us getting kind of acclimated to living in Thailand, because it's kind of hard at first. And then the picture on the right was the worst food I ever ate in Thailand. It was like some sort of the shrimp. You can see the shrimp. The yellow was some sort of egg of some kind, and then like it was not like, it's all in like a gelatinous warm gravy. I don't know how to like describe it, but it was just I couldn't eat it. I had one bite, and that was more than enough. I didn't touch it for the whole year again. But I wish I would have had more food pictures, but I really only have a couple like market photos, but I didn't get any of like the really good food that I had and really came to like. So yeah, on the food, these are my older kids. So I taught M1 to M3, and M stands for like Matayam, which is like grade, I guess. So M1 is like secondary school, I guess they would call it, and that's like 12-year-olds. M2 is like 13 to 14, and then this is M3, and these kids are 15 to 16. Mostly I taught reading and writing classes, but with the M3, I got the chance to teach like kind of like a recreation class. Originally, they wanted me to do a computer class, and I thought it would just be Microsoft Word, but it ended up being like a coding class that I'd have no info on. So I was able to like change it to a cooking class. And so we got to do like like all these kids, like we did like a cooking around the world, and they had to pick a non-Thai dish. So I think they made like carbonara, and I don't know, I think they might have made a Thai thing, but.
I want to interrupt just for a second. Those are not their school uniforms, correct? And you just showed the next picture, which are their school uniforms. For those of us who are involved in Scouting USA, they look awfully much like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Is that what those are? Those uniforms?
They are. Okay. So on Thursdays is Scout Day, and this is like nationwide. Every school in Thailand wears these uniforms on Thursdays. Like you have to go through the scouting until M3, and then after M3, you can grow your hair out. Like because of scouting, all of the girls have to have the little bob cut. And it's part of the curriculum nationwide.
Wow. Okay.
But it's interesting because they have like 3 sets of uniforms. I was trying to find another photo because they would wear this on like Mondays and like Wednesdays, and then Tuesday, Friday they would wear like sweatpants and like a shirt, and then Thursdays would be Scout Day, and they hated Scout Day because the uniforms were hot and it's like 110 degrees and they had to go march on the campus and stuff. But these were my younger kids. This is my E1 and M1. So the kids I taught they were definitely wealthy, from wealthy families. Like, to be in like the multilingual program in the English language program that I taught in was like, I think $2,000 for the multilingual program a semester. And that's like a lot of Thai baht for like some of these parents, but they learn, I think it's Mandarin, English, Korean, and Thai, and they take classes in all four, like super bright 14-year-old kids. And like the English class is the same way, like they're just pushed. Every class is in English, you know, they speak English very well. And then part of it is like they get to go on a trip. So some of my M3 kids had all been to the UK the year before. They went on like a school trip, and like that, they just have a lot more. There's like different school brackets. Like, so, you know, like there's the regular public school that's in other buildings. In those classrooms, they're not air conditioned. Like a lot of the TVs don't work, you know, and like that's the free Thai education. And then if like your parents can pay more, then you'd get like access to like a foreign English teacher, you know, then you get AC, you get projectors and smart boards and stuff. But there really is like a hierarchy in who gets what in the school system. But that being said, like the school had 3,000 kids, and I did not see a single like physical altercation once. Like no fighting. The kids like pick on each other, but it's not like vicious. It's not really like ganging up, I guess. That was one of the craziest things for me, going from working in like an inner city school to like working in like a huge school in Thailand, is that just the respect. Like you walk into the classroom as a teacher, they all stand up. Good morning, teacher. And they stay standing up until you tell them to sit down. You know, like this, I've never seen like a level of respect for teachers than it is in Thailand. And that was like one of the cultural things that we were told like early on, is that like if you're, I mean, like let's face it, a lot of teachers go to Thailand and go abroad to have a good time, you know, and like that was like something that they touch base on, is like the partying and stuff. And that they just say like in Thai culture, like as a teacher, you are very like highly regarded in the community. So you can't be really drunk at the bars in your town. Like the parents of your kids can't see you drunk. That's disrespectful. It's not like the role of a teacher. So like if we'd go out, and like sometimes our director would take us out, we would go like 30 minutes out of town to go to a bar, because it's like we can't go to one in our town. And that was just something that I never thought of, like, because our teach, like, you know, in America, there's nothing like that. You can, you know, there's a huge separation between, you know, work and home life. So in Thailand, it's not like you're always expected to basically be respectful and uphold, you know, where you are, I guess, on the hierarchy. But it was cool. It was cool to be like held in such regard as like a 26-year-old teacher coming in and just having all that respect because you're like a teacher. Not saying I really earned it. They just, oh, you're a teacher. We respect you because you're a teacher. You know, that was crazy. And yeah, kind of going off, this was part of like the Teacher Appreciation Day, and this is just a super like elaborate like ceremony, and these kids would like, they're like, where I'm standing is sitting on a stage with 10 teachers or so next to me, and like 10 kids would walk on their knees with like very highly decorated like flower bouquets kind of that are like pinned into super like nice and like symmetrical designs, and like present it to you, you know, as like a thanks. And this would go on all day. All of the kids would do it. It's like a high honor if you're the one that you get to present it to your teachers. But Teacher Appreciation Day was like huge. It was super cool to like be a part of. Okay. Continue. And then, so moving on from the school, these are pictures taken from like the market. So the market was there was a small one in town on Saturdays, and then there was a huge one every Sunday. And it was just massive. You can get anything you want at these markets. And I don't know. Like, I like to cook, but there's just stuff that I don't even know. I don't know what it is. I wouldn't know how to prepare it. But yeah, like you can see like the tied up frogs, you know, like that was something that me and the UK friends like would talk about, is like Thai people must have just a stomach of steel, because like these frogs would just be sitting out on like a hot pan for 5 hours, not on ice, you know, in the sun, and like they just come up and buy it, eat it, you know. Like I would get sick. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know. I got food poisoning a couple times, but like Thai people could just eat anything. And then the right one is, they have putting meat on a stick is just like staple street food in Thailand, and it was always my go-to. It was like the chicken on a stick was so good, so many different seasonings. But that's like the number one food I miss, is like the street stick meat, mystery meat food. Yeah, and these are more market photos. And then on the right, that's Costa Maris Island, but you can see the 7-Eleven, and 7-Eleven is just huge in Thailand. Like you pay your bills at 7-Eleven. Like I pay my electric bill at 7-Eleven, my water bill could be paid at 7-Eleven. Like everything. I don't know. This is crazy how many there are. There'd be like one 7-Eleven and then another one right across the street, and they just like they sell the same things, but they're huge. Like it's where, I don't know. You definitely could find like a few like Western items there. They had like chocolate milk and some candy bars, but it was just definitely the number one convenience store in Thailand. Oh yeah. Okay. So the motorbikes. This photo on the left is one of my favorite. We're getting onto the highway, and this family has that tiny girl just like on top of the sidecar, no seatbelt. But that's another like cultural thing that really kind of slapped me in the face, is like, you know, brand new, like newborn child, like kids, like they're riding on mopeds, no helmets. They make baby like attachment seats that go into like the mopeds. And that was like everybody has a scooter, and we were highly advised not to get a scooter, because you get in, like, there's accidents every year, and Thailand allegedly is like number one for traffic deaths in the world. But basically, like, if you want to get around anywhere freely, you need a scooter, and that's kind of what it came down to. So I paid $300, and my roommate paid $300, and we bought that scooter, and that lasted us almost all year. It actually got stolen at a market, which is that's another story, but I'll get to that story later. But you really need it to get around. We could, like, on the weekends, if you don't have anything to do, if we didn't go anywhere, a lot of times we would just like hop on the scooter and just go explore, go rip around the rice paddies, you know, see what we could find. And that was like definitely a huge piece of independence for me and my roommate, going from because we'd have to bike 1.5 miles to the school at like 8 a.m, and it's already like 100 degrees. You get there, you're already like sweating through your khakis and your polo. It's like, I'd rather buy a scooter and just, you know, make this way easier. But yeah, I miss that scooter. I wish I wouldn't have lost it. And then yeah, it's just some animals. A lot of geckos. They live in the house, honestly. A lot of geckos would just be chilling in like your living room, and that's cool. They're like the Thai house pet is what they're called, and they eat a lot of the bugs. We had a lot of cockroaches, like a lot of big cockroaches that would just appear. We had like poison in the corners, and then so they'd eat it, and then they just come into the middle of the kitchen to die, and just sweep up like 4 or 5 of them at a time. Big spiders. Apparently one of the old teachers that lived in our house found like a fat python in like the pipes outside of the house. That was like 2 years before we were there though. The photo on the right was like a field trip day. We went to an open zoo. And so we got to that was actually super cool. I didn't put all of my zoo photos in here, but they had like rhinos and just like, yeah, zebras. And then these ones are out in the wild. Yeah, the bug photo I had to take because I'm not a big bug guy, and that was just way too big. But the lizards, Bangkok has a lot of monitor lizards in like their canals and stuff. And one of Lumpini Park, downtown Bangkok, is filled with huge monitor lizards that they just walk around. They're chilling. They're in like the lake, like 4 to 5 feet long, foot long, like lizards, and they just hang out downtown of a huge metropolis. I thought that was pretty cool. And this is the view from one of the rooftop bars, like that we went to. And this was kind of at night, and then this was like during the day, but this was like off one side. Like if I went to the other side of the bar and looked out to like the other side, it would be like the same thing. It's sprawling. It's just high rise as far as you can see. I've never been to a city of that magnitude before. It's just completely mind blowing for me. And then, yeah, so the photo on the left, times before COVID, this was Khao San Road, which is very, very famous walking street in Bangkok. It's kind of like the red light district. But so much fun down there. Just a bunch of bars, a bunch of tourist spots, and they sell a bunch of like bootleg, fake Louis Vuitton and fake Adidas shoes, and that was always like a kick. But when me and my buddy had 4 of our friends come to visit for the New Year's, and we spent a lot of time on Khao San. It was a good time. And then the photo on the right is the BTS, the Bangkok train system, and that is a lifesaver, because Bangkok traffic is insane, completely insane. I would absolutely never try to drive in Bangkok, but you can get around on the BTS pretty much from one side to the other in probably like 30 minutes on the SkyTrain. It's nice, it's clean, it's air conditioned, which is huge when it's super hot out, and it's pretty cheap. But like it took us a while to figure out where you're going, because there's so many stops and connection points, but once you get it figured out, it's easier than taking taxis or tuk-tuks. And then, oh yeah, so the photo on the left is actually a photo of a Wisconsin bar that we found in Thailand. And so I had an old-fashioned and some cheese curds in Bangkok, but that was like super surreal. I had like a bunch of like Packer flags, and I had PBRs there. It was just, it's crazy that I always go to new cities and see if I can find like a Packer bar, because I'm like a Packers fan. Like I was in Bangkok, like I wonder if they have one, and lo and behold, you look online and it's 30 minutes away, so we had to stop at one point. And then the photo on the right was just on we went to like Koh Samet, which is like one of our, like an island that was like a couple hours away, and it was like a very like local touristy spot, so you didn't get a lot of like really major tourists. Is more like Thai families would go in vacation there, so it was like quiet, and we enjoyed that. That was super fun. And then beach photos. Of course, Thai beaches are huge. The photo on the left is in Phuket. Loved Phuket. Phuket was so fun too. And I think the photo on the right, I don't know where I took that one, but so much nice, just like landscape, and there's just beaches everywhere. That was one thing I really liked, was like a lot of public beaches. There was definitely, the resorts had their hand on like some of like the nice coves and like the nice beaches, but for a large portion of it, it was just open. You could just take a walk to the boardwalk and hit the beach, and I like that. I think that was something me and my roommate, if we had time off, or we could go. Like we didn't really go to North Thailand at all. We stayed on the coast. We would go to the south, always around the beach. And of course, like the nightlife, the fire throwers are just like, they were crazy. They just were like local celebrities. They were like super ripped, tatted Thai dudes that would like just come in, entertain the locals, hang out with the tourists, hang out with like tourists, basically just party with them, and then on to the next site, like the next night. They lived a crazy life. They were fun to talk to. They just seemed to party and throw fires all the time. And then we went to one of like the big things in Thailand is like the full moon parties. And that's like a super big like touristy thing that a lot of young people do. And so we went there for, I forget what island it's on, Koh Phangan. It's like an island in South Thailand. Oh, somebody got a question. But that was like, it's almost like a festival, and it was just thousands and thousands of people on this 2-mile long beach partying till like 8 in the morning. It was definitely one of those things that you do once and you don't probably need to do it again. But it was like, again, a super cool experience, you know, like loved. We stayed like right on the beach and had too much fun.
What's it supposed to be about? I don't know, I think.
Dewey, we're talking about Thailand.
Okay, I'll be there.
Okay.
So this is kind of getting to like one of the cultural things, and one of like the part that really, really like impacted me. This is my Thai family, essentially. On the right photo, the lady holding up her hand and the guy doing the finger guns, that's Pam and Pian. They are like, basically where these photos are taking place is in Tam Tams, which is like a restaurant bar, and they own it. And Pam is like, essentially, he was like the mayor of the town that I lived in, and he like impromptu sort of like took care of the people. He owned like a chain of department stores, so he had like quite a bit of money, and he helped out everybody in the community. But this bar that is in the photo would be open from 5 until 11, and then after 11 the doors would shut, and it was for the club. So it's like, it's a clubhouse, so everybody here would be like club members, and we'd go on club trips and do like club things. So after 11, doors closed, and we'd end up just like sitting around this table, like, and there's like a full kitchen, and like bring out food, bring out drinks, and it was all for free. And it was every night that we just all like just gather there and like have drinks, have food. And it was just, he bought the bar because he liked to eat and drink with his friends. And so he would just, I mean, all he would do was just like collect money from his department stores, and then like make sure the restaurant was running, and then come to the clubhouse and then like hang out. And he was like, I don't know, he was such a generous guy. Like, they would take us to like super nice resorts on like fishing trips, and it would be like 50 of us, and it would be like, everything's paid for, all the food is paid for, it's brought, like cases of booze for them, and they would just be like fishing all day for like a weekend. And one of my good friends came to visit me while I was there, and like he ended up getting to come on one of these trips. Like, I was like, PN, like one of my friends is coming to town to visit, like, can he come on the Tam Tams trip? And it was Janine Bad and I, like, yeah, of course he can come. Like, they were just so welcoming. And like, in terms, I feel like the one thing I really learned about like Thailand and the people is like the importance of like social capital. Like, just like knowing that like, you know, we would help them if they needed anything, and like they really helped us if we needed anything. When our motorbike got stolen, we walked to the clubhouse, and somebody at the club had a spare one, and they let us borrow that one, you know? So like, it was like when we left Thailand, instead of taking a van to the airport, Pam and Pian drove us in their car, you know? Like, it was just like, we kind of forged like a bond that was really unique. I don't know, they took care of us in every way that we needed. And then we ended up meeting like a lot of the club members became like really good friends of ours. And so this is, the guy on the right was like the chef, and we'd be like, you just cook up like whatever you want. But if you asked him to make something, he'd make it for you. And he'd always just make super spicy dishes. And he's making a super spicy dish, so he had to put his shirt over his head so he didn't inhale the chilies, I think. But, and then the guy on the right was my roommate, and then the other one is Jack. He was like the lead singer, so like the bar had a band, like an in-house band that played every night, and he was like the residential singer. So he just played every night, was there every night. And he actually really helped me and Zach, because he spoke fluent English. He was like a dual citizen. He had like Swiss citizenship. He was like a professional skateboarder in his younger days in like Europe. So he spoke really good English, and he knew obviously fluent Thai. So he like took us around and like just showed us the ropes a lot. He's still a good friend of ours. We still keep in contact. I'm trying to get him to come to the United States. And then, yeah, so we got Clubhouse Tattoos. But these are just all of my really good Thai friends that were part of the club. That's the Jack, and then the guy with the cigarette is Golf. He's a good friend of ours. He was the one, he let us borrow his motorbike for the last 2 months. But just another great Thai guy who could give you the shirt off his back. He's a great friend of ours. And then the guy on the right is Petch, and he's another good friend that we try to talk to, as often as I can. But the time zone difference at 12 hours really messes with that. Okay, I think I'm almost through here. And then, yeah, so this is, I think, my last photo. This is like the whole club on like right on the ocean at one of the resorts for like one of our trips. But this was definitely like the most, like what really made the experience special was kind of getting into like a Thai community really, and like not just being like an outsider, but like feeling like an insider for a while. And like a lot of them, not everybody in the club spoke English, but like they all knew, like we were all friends in a way. And like that was super cool to experience that and have that generosity be given onto you. But yeah, I think that's all I got for my photos.
Okay. So a couple quick questions. How difficult is the Thai language to learn?
So it's super hard actually, because English is a monotone language, right? There's only one tone. Whereas like Thai, it's 4 different tones mean different things. So the same word, like my, depending on how you use the tones, like can mean 4 different things. So it's hard when like they're speaking, because not only like you have to figure out what the word is, but you also have to like decipher the tone, and they're speaking fast. So it's like, it's not something that like English speakers really are geared to do. You have to really learn how to do that consciously.
So when the students are learning the 4 languages, they're learning them simultaneously. So is like, literature taught in one language, math taught in one language, you were teaching computer stuff. Is that interesting? Okay.
Like my kids did schoolwork from the way it seemed sun up to sundown. Like they were highly diligent students.
And what town did you live in? You visited Bangkok, but what town did you live in again?
Phnom Sarakam. I was gonna make a slide to spell it because I can say it, but like probably won't be able to spell it.
Well, we can look it up before I make the video, and then I'll put it in there. So
I can send it to you too, how to spell it if you want.
Yeah, that'll be great. And then have you lived other places to teach English, or just to just have lived other places? You're pretty young. You're pretty fresh out of college, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, Thailand was my big move after Tulsa and Thailand were pretty much the only 2 places I've lived.
Okay. Would you go back? Would you teach English again somewhere else? Would you go back to Thailand?
So that's a thing. And like teaching in Thailand can be really, really lucrative if you put your time in. Like if you can speak Thai as a foreign teacher in Bangkok, you can get like a university school job, like at a really nice high school. They'll pay you like 90,000 USD, which goes so far in Thailand. Like the baht is, I think $1 is worth 33 baht. So like it stretches, that's a lot of money. I was paid 30,000 baht a month. So that comes out to a little bit less than like $1,000. And then when I tell you that was more, like I saved money. Like I was always traveling and doing stuff. Like I wasn't trying to save money, but like I just didn't. Like a plate of food is less than $1 on the street. I didn't cook a meal for an entire year. Food is just so cheap, and there's so many restaurants.
Yeah, interesting. What is, from the chat here, what is the most significant thing you learned from your experience in Thailand?
Being resilient, honestly. Like Thai people just don't, I mean, they just go with the flow. And if something goes wrong, like at school or something, I was the last to know, so you just really have to be flexible. And like sometimes I'm a person that likes to plan things, and when things don't go to plan, I get frustrated, and I had to really like check that and be like, nope, you know what, I'm along for the ride today.
Ease a little bit.
Yeah, like you got to come up with things as you go, you know, like, oh, maybe the internet's out today. Weird, you know, like, oh, the TV doesn't, somebody took the TV. Weird, you know, like it's just, you can't, things happen.
Yeah. So you went from Tulsa, and that's your inner city experience, I'm guessing, to Bangkok. Would you have had, do you think, a similar experience if you had not been at this this high paying, or this, you know, school for more wealthy students? What is the economy like in Bangkok? Is there a lot of poverty?
The economy, well, like, yeah, for sure. I mean, the haves and the have-nots, like the elites of Bangkok are filthy rich. You know, like there's like, you can see a lot of supercars riding around Bangkok, but you're also going to see, you know, very destitute homeless people, you know, begging for change on every corner you go. You know, like not every, but a lot. Like there's a big gap between, like, you know, the rich and the poor.
Okay.
I would say.
I just lost my other question. Oh, I have to ask you about the politics, because people who criticize the king are subject to imprisonment for 15 years.
That was. Yeah,
do you know anybody who did?
I don't know anybody who. I do know one of the guys that I was in the program with did end up in Thai jail, but it wasn't for that. But that was something that we were versed on from the start, and like reminded hard. Like, you don't say anything bad about the king. Like, and some of the kids would like. I had a couple kids who were like really smart and like were very aware, and they would, you know, make side remarks about the king, and I would just be like, okay, like I don't want to entertain it. I'm not going to be a part of it. You know, this holds different weight for me.
Yeah.
I was there during the Bangkok mall shooting.
Okay. And
that was like, from an American's perspective, where we are kind of desensitized to mass shootings, right? This, like, it's crazy to see these Thai people. Like, my Pom was crying in the club, like in the clubhouse over the shooting, and it's crazy to me. It's like, this didn't like affect anybody, you know, but it's like, there's no shootings. Like, shootings don't happen in Thailand. People don't have guns in Thailand. So for this to happen was just like, they take it so much more serious. And I realized, like, yeah, this is cultural for like me too. Like, this is a big deal, but Americans just another shooting, you know, it's something that happens in our society. It doesn't happen in Thai society.
Interesting. Did you experience any political unrest? Did you see any protests or anything, or were you already back before those started?
No, I was out on like one of the last planes in March, which was like, yeah, my flight to Bangkok was like $500, and my flight home was $1,600 because there's only 2 Japanese airlines running, and like they could charge what they want. Like, people needed to get home, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Anybody else with some questions? You can unmute yourself. Dewey, go ahead, Dewey.
When I was there on business, it looked like sex was available, male or female, just about any place. And it was very awkward for me. Is that still the case?
Yes, true. Like, they have hubs, like South Thailand and Pattaya is like the headquarters of like the sex capital of Thailand, and you can go there and there's like nobody even trying to hide it. You know, there's like old dudes walking with young girls and guys, you know, girls trying to grab you, and it's scummy. But that's a part of the economy in Thailand, though. Like, a lot of the poor Thai rural people send their daughters to the city to try to make money and bring it back, and that's a harsh reality. Yeah, it is.
But yeah, sex tourism, Thailand's somewhat famous for that, and yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
So another question from the chat. I know we're getting close here. How involved are the royals in politics? Do they really know what's going on? Are they protected, or?
I think, like, it's been detached in later years, so I think they're more becoming like ceremonial figureheads.
Okay.
But like King Rama IX is like an older king who like did a lot for Thailand's infrastructure, and he is like almost regarded as like the George Washington of Thai culture. You know, he's just like a very beloved king. They still love him. Like people still have like decals of like his portrait on their cars and stuff. You know, like he's very, very loved still. But like the king now is kind of like, he's done some questionable things. He's had like some women in like the palace that are not supposed to be there. You know, like Thai people have. I don't think he has the warmest reputation.
Yeah, his official mistress, if I'm not mistaken, holds a position in his government.
That's what it is. The official mistress. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So, well, you know, things to aspire to. And is there a Communist Party presence in Thailand? And if so, how powerful is it?
I'm not sure, honestly. Like I didn't get a whole lot into the politics, and to be honest, a lot of the Thai people didn't want to get into politics with me. You know, it's kind of seemed like really personal for the most part, but I also didn't press too super hard, and I probably could have done more research into it, but I didn't.
Yeah. Interesting though. But yeah, politics is, you know, you're an outsider. So they may not have been as comfortable talking to you about it because it's not your thing.
Right. I just kind of stay quiet and go along with the ride.
So I asked about, you know, going from Tulsa to Thailand, from Thailand to Peoria, to the Boys and Girls Club of Peoria. What do you think is about that transition?
It's hard. It's hard because I was working with like a bunch of kids that were very, like, had been really worked with from a young age, had a lot of practice, you know, and supervision. And now I have like 6-year-old kids that, you know, with COVID especially, like exacerbating these problems, like they can't even write their name at 6. So, you know, like they're not in school. All my kids aren't in school. And this is like Boys and Girls Clubs and after school program. So it's like, it's hard. It's a huge challenge. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like teaching kids that really want to learn, it's easy. Like teaching kids when you don't have like as an after school program, when there's no school and I have to come up with it, it's been hard. It's been a struggle. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a big struggle.
I can imagine. Very good. Any last questions from anybody? Has anybody else in this group lived in Thailand or visited Thailand regularly?
Regularly? I've been to Thailand, but not regularly.
Okay. Barb and Bernie, you guys have been to Thailand? Just visited? Okay. I can't see everybody at this moment. But Charles has been there. Did you live there or just visit?
Judy and I visited for somewhat of a private tour for about 2 weeks, and we went to Bangkok several days and then spent a lot of time in the north part of Thailand, Chiang Mai, and also in the mountains where we rode on elephants and visited the long-necked people at a very remote location almost on the Burmese border.
That's
so
cool.
we saw quite a bit.
Yeah. And Charles did sneak in. Go ahead, Dewey.
During the 80s, Caterpillar bought stuff around the world because of the dollar-yen relationship. And I went to Thailand to do that, and we got a real bargain there because they had started a truck industry and they brought in a Japanese foundry that was really modern and only half utilized. Well, we bought the other half at a bargain and really helped Caterpillar.
Neat. And them too. I mean, if you're creating an industry that employs Thai people, that does help, but it's always good when Cat gets a deal. All right, we've got to let him go. But on behalf of the Peoria Area World Affairs Council, thank you, Eli.
Thank you. This has been great.
Interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
hopefully you'll join us for some other things, and if we can work it out to provide some opportunities for your students, maybe not 6-year-olds, but maybe some of your other older students to participate in the World Affairs Council activities, by all means. We'll be sharing that with you. So
okay, I look forward to it.
So
Thank you, guys.
Could I ask you one more question?
Sure.
Real quick, the culture of kindness. You were talking about the kindness of the people. Does that emanate from their religion? They're pretty much Buddhist, right?
That was my thought. And like, to be honest, I think it stems from like the Buddhism, and the same thing with like the schools, why like nobody gets into fights at schools. Like they're all very like Buddhist, like they all have like the same values, you know. And that was, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really touch on that, but the Buddhism is a huge pillar of like Thai everything.
Interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. So everyone, next week we are going to have a discussion of Wednesday's events for our Global Peoria evening. So be ready to be civil in our discussion. And then next Friday we have a very civil but also interesting discussion of Brexit. It is theoretically a done deal now, and how is that actually playing out with Dr. David Clayton from ISU. So have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and we shall see you next week for Global Peoria Thursday night and Brexit on Friday at 11.